Good morning. We're back on the air right now because the House Judiciary Committee is now voting on the articles of impeachment against President Trump. Two articles at issue, one for abuse of power, the second for obstruction of Congress. The roll call now in that Judiciary Committee, divided along party lines on the article of abuse of power. Let's listen.
Votes no. Mr. Buck?
No.
Mr. Buck votes no. Mr. Radcliffe?
No.
Mr. Radcliffe votes no. Ms. Roby?
No.
Ms. Roby votes no. Mr. Gates?
No.
Mr. Gates votes no.
So
Mr.
far,
Johnson
every
of
Democrat
Louisiana
has voted
No.
yes.
Mr. Johnson of
Every
Louisiana
Republican
votes
voted no.
Mr. Biggs?
No.
Again, this is
Mr.
on
Biggs
abuse of
votes
power
no.
related to the president's
Mr. McClintock?
No.
crushing of Ukraine
Mr. McClintock votes no.
to announce
Ms.
investigations
Lesko?
into
No.
Joe Biden and the
Ms.
Democrats.
Lesko votes no. Mr. Reschenthaler?
Is holding a White House
Mr.
meeting.
Reschenthaler votes no.
And according to Democrats,
Mr. Klein?
close to $400 million in military
Mr.
aid.
Klein votes no. Mr. Armstrong?
No.
Mr. Armstrong votes no. Mr. Stubbe?
No.
Mr. Stubbe votes no.
Has every member voted who wishes to vote?
Hi, everyone. It's John. Thanks for coming back. House Republicans aligned with Trump have filed articles of impeachment against a federal judge, not for any crime or misconduct, but because the judge issued rulings that Trump didn't like. The move marks an unprecedented effort to remove a judge for doing his job. This is the kind of thing that happens in authoritarian countries, where the leader gets to decide which judges stay and which judges go based on loyalty rather than merit. This is not supposed to happen in America. The Constitution created an independent judiciary specifically to prevent this exact scenario. Federal judges have lifetime appointments so they can rule based on the law without fear of political retaliation. But that protection is now being tested in ways that would have seemed unthinkable just a few years ago. The details here are wild.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask how I'm recorded?
How is the gentleman recorded?
Mr. Gomer, you are recorded as no.
Yeah, I want to make sure.
The clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, there are 23 ayes and 17 noes.
The article is agreed to. The question now is on Article 2 of the resolution, impeaching President Donald J. Trump for obstructing Congress. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Nadler?
So there you have it. The House Judiciary
Mr.
Committee has
Nadler
now
votes
approved
aye.
an article of impeachment against President Trump.
Aye.
Ms. Lofgren
Tara Moran
votes
there
aye.
on Capitol Hill as they're voting on the
Jackson
second
Lee.
article
Aye.
for
Ms.
obstruction
Jackson
of
Lee votes
Congress.
aye.
This is now the
Mr.
fourth
Keller.
time in American history the
Mr.
House Judiciary
Keller
Committee has
votes aye.
voted articles of impeachment
Mr.
out
Johnson of Georgia.
against the sitting president.
Mr. Johnson
It
of
is,
Georgia
and it is a
votes aye.
historic moment taken along strict party lines, and that is an achievement of the president. It has to be considered that way. When this story broke and the transcript of that phone call between President Trump and President Zelensky came to light, you saw some Republicans up here.
And you need to understand exactly who is involved and what they are doing. Representative Brandon Gill, a Texas Republican and one of Trump's most loyal allies in the House, has formally introduced articles of impeachment against U.S. District Judge James Boasberg. If that name sounds familiar, it is because Judge Boasberg has been at the center of several high-profile cases involving the Trump administration. He is the judge who opened possible contempt proceedings against Trump administration officials earlier this year. He is the judge who issued orders that blocked or slowed down key parts of Trump's agenda. And now, because he did not rule the way Trump wanted, they are coming after him with everything they have got.
Waver a bit. They called it troubling in public. They said it was not okay. But because of the president's very staunch defense of his own behavior, because of the natural partisanship that boils over on this in this Capitol every day, they are now a strict party line vote. That call was perfect. That is the Republican defense line of the president. No more wavering, no more troubled reflection on whether or not we want presidents to do this with foreign leaders. You are watching right now a political accomplishment by President Trump in this party line vote, and he's praising them as warriors.
On the House Judiciary Committee, the second article now being voted on.
Ms. McBath
Democrats
votes
have again all voted aye.
Mr. Stanton?
Aye.
Mr. Stanton votes aye. Ms. Dean?
Aye.
Ms. Dean votes aye. Ms. McCarcel-Powell?
Aye.
Ms. McCarcel-Powell votes aye. Ms. Escobar?
Aye.
Ms. Escobar votes aye. Mr. Collins?
No.
Mr. Collins votes no.
And you hear again those
Mr.
Republicans
Sensenbrenner?
voting no. John
Mr.
Carl, as
Sensenbrenner votes
Chair
no.
Moran just said, perhaps a
Shabbat?
political achievement
Mr.
for the
Shabbat
president
votes no.
to hold his party
Gomer?
together, at least on this vote.
The impeachment articles accuse Boasberg of abusing his power and compromising the impartiality of the judiciary. They claim he weaponized his courtroom against political opponents. Those are the actual words they are using, weaponized. As if a judge applying the law is somehow an act of war against the president. And here's what makes this even more concerning. This is not just one random congressman going rogue. This is part of a coordinated effort. A separate group of Republican senators led by Trump ally Eric Schmidt has already asked the D.C. Circuit to sideline or suspend Judge Boasberg ahead of his contempt decisions. So you have got the House filing impeachment papers and the Senate trying to get him removed from cases through the appeals court. They are coming at this judge from every possible angle. The message they are sending to every other judge in the country is crystal clear. If you rule against Trump, you are next. If you do your job and the law does not go his way, you will be targeted. You will be attacked. You will face impeachment. That is the new reality we are living in right now.
So far, of course, a trial is coming in the Senate, and so far it appears that he has strong support, if not unanimous support, among Senate Republicans as well. But this was still a mark he does not want on his record.
A mark he does not want on his record. He goes down in history. This is the beginning of the process of him going down in history as only the third president to be impeached. Of course, Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, Richard Nixon, obviously resigning before it reached this level. This is something the president did not want, a mark, a scar on his legacy. But I have to completely agree with Terry Moran. This is a victory of sorts for the president in that it is a purely party line vote. It enables the White House to say this is a partisan process. This is the president's political opponents going into an election year trying to put a stain on his legacy and perhaps on his chances for re-election, although I have to say Republicans feel pretty good right now where they are.
And the second article has now been voted on.
The resolution is amended is ordered reported favorably to the House. Members will have 2 days to submit views. The resolution will be reported as a single amendment in the nature of a substitute.
And it should terrify everyone regardless of your political views. The New York City Bar Association, one of the most respected legal organizations in the country, put out a statement condemning these impeachment moves. They warned that threatening judges over unpopular rulings undermines the rule of law and judicial independence. They called it an assault on the foundations of our legal system. And they are right, because once you establish that judges can be impeached simply for making decisions that powerful people disagree with, you have destroyed the entire concept of an independent judiciary. You have turned every courtroom into a political battlefield where the only thing that matters is whether your ruling pleases the people in power.
Without objection, staff is authorized to make technical and conforming changes. Without objection, the committee is adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant
For what purpose does the gentleman seek recognition?
to Clause 2L of Rule 11, I give notice of intent to file dissenting views.
Notice is heard. Without objection, the committee is adjourned.
So there you have it. The House Judiciary Committee has now voted out, approved 2 articles of impeachment against President Donald John Trump. In fact, that is how the final resolution does read. Donald John Trump has been impeached on those 2 articles. Only change made in the committee started changing it from Donald J. Trump to Donald John Trump. But there you see it, 2 strict party line votes on abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. These articles of impeachment will now go to the House floor. That is likely to be voted on by midweek before Christmas. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said she wants to move for a quick vote. President Trump has also said he wants a quick trial in the Senate. With that, he has agreement from the Senate Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, as well. We will likely be coming back at the first of the year for that trial of President Trump on these 2 articles of impeachment. The next step, the House floor, that is next week. We're going to return now to regular programming. For many of you, that is Good Morning America.
That is not justice. That is tyranny wearing a legal costume. Let me take you deeper into this, because there is so much more going on here than just one impeachment filing. This is part of a much bigger pattern. A systematic campaign to intimidate and control the federal judiciary. And if you do not understand the full scope of what is happening, you are missing the real story. This is not just about Judge Boasberg. This is about fundamentally changing how the American court system works. And the people pushing this know exactly what they are doing. Let me give you some background on how we got here, because this did not come out of nowhere. Throughout the past year, we have seen an escalating war between the Trump administration and federal judges who have ruled against various Trump policies. It started with angry social media posts and name-calling. Trump would attack judges on Truth Social, calling them biased and corrupt and saying they were part of a rigged system designed to stop him. His supporters would pile on and the judges would start receiving threats. Then it escalated to calls for impeachment. Trump himself posted demands that certain judges be impeached. Elon Musk joined in and called for a wave of judge impeachments. Republican members of Congress started introducing actual impeachment resolutions. And now here we are with formal articles of impeachment against a sitting federal judge in the middle of active litigation involving the Trump administration. Each step seemed unthinkable until it happened, and then it became the new normal. That is how these things work. You push the boundaries a little bit at a time until suddenly you are somewhere that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. The threats against judges have gotten genuinely dangerous. This is not just political rhetoric anymore. According to Reuters, federal judiciary officials have confirmed that U.S. Marshals are warning judges about unusually high threat levels this year. Security has been ramped up for judges handling Trump-related cases because the threats are spiking. We are talking about real, credible threats here. NPR reported that judges who ruled against the Trump agenda have faced not just impeachment campaigns, but actual bomb threats. Bomb threats against federal courthouses, against judges' chambers, because someone did not like a legal ruling. The physical safety of judges and their families is now at risk because of the political environment that has been created around these cases. Judges are living with armed protection. Their home addresses are being shared online. They are being doxxed and harassed. And the people in power who could calm this down are instead pouring gasoline on the fire by filing impeachment papers and calling judges enemies of the people. Now, let me be very clear about something, because I think some people genuinely do not understand how impeachment is supposed to work. The Constitution allows for the impeachment of federal judges. That is true. But it is supposed to be used for high crimes and misdemeanors. It is supposed to be used when a judge is corrupt or commits serious misconduct or is genuinely unfit for office. It is not supposed to be used as a punishment for judges who make rulings you disagree with. That is a fundamental perversion of the impeachment power. And the people doing this know that. They are law school graduates. They understand the Constitution. They are choosing to ignore what impeachment actually means because they want to send a message. The message is fall in line or we will come after you. Rule the way we want or face the consequences. And that message is being heard by every federal judge in the country right now. Chief Justice John Roberts, the head of the Supreme Court and a conservative appointed by George W. Bush, felt compelled to speak out about this earlier this year. He publicly rebuked Trump for calling to impeach federal judges. He stressed that impeachment is not a tool for punishing judges over unpopular decisions. He warned that this kind of rhetoric undermines judicial independence, which is foundational to how our government works. Think about that for a second. The Chief Justice of the United States, not exactly a liberal activist, had to come out and basically say, stop doing this because you are damaging the court system. And what happened after he spoke out? Did anyone listen? Did the attack stop? No, they got worse. The impeachment filings kept coming. The threats kept escalating. And now we have formal articles of impeachment against Judge Boasberg sitting in the House of Representatives. Here is what really concerns me about where this is heading. If this becomes normalized, if impeaching judges over their rulings becomes an accepted political tactic, we are going to see a chilling effect on judicial decision-making across the entire federal court system. Judges are human beings. They have families, they have careers. They do not want to be threatened and harassed and dragged through impeachment proceedings. And if they know that ruling a certain way will bring all of that down on them, some of them are going to think twice. Some of them might change their rulings. Some of them might bend to the political pressure, even if the law says something different. And once that starts happening, once judges are making decisions based on fear instead of law, we have lost something essential about what makes America different from authoritarian countries. We have lost the idea that there is a neutral place where disputes get resolved based on rules that apply equally to everyone, including the president. Let me address something I know some of you are thinking. Some of you might be thinking, well, maybe these judges deserve it. Maybe they are biased against Trump. Maybe they are making political decisions disguised as legal rulings. And look, I understand that criticism. There are legitimate debates to be had about judicial activism and whether some judges overstep their authority. Those are fair conversations. But here is the thing. Disagreeing with a judge is not the same as that judge being corrupt or impeachable. The proper response to a ruling you think is wrong is to appeal it. Take it to a higher court. Make your legal arguments. That is how the system is supposed to work. The improper response is to threaten the judge, file impeachment papers, and try to intimidate them into changing their behavior. Because once you go down that road, you are not trying to fix the system, you are trying to break it. You are trying to make judges afraid to rule against you. And that is not justice. That is just raw political power disguised as legal process. The language being used in these impeachment articles is really revealing. They accuse Judge Boasberg of weaponizing his power against political opponents. But think about what that actually means. A judge rules on a case. The ruling goes against the Trump administration. And suddenly that judge is accused of weaponization, as if applying the law to people you support is an attack, as if the president should be immune from adverse court rulings. That is the underlying logic here, that any judge who rules against Trump must be acting in bad faith and deserves to be removed. There is no acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, the law actually required that ruling. There is no acceptance that sometimes you lose in court because your position was wrong. It is all framed as persecution and bias and weaponization. And that framing is designed to justify whatever retaliation comes next. Let me break this down into what it actually means for you and for the country. Because this is not just inside baseball legal drama. This affects everyone. The entire structure of American government depends on three separate branches that check each other's power. The executive branch, that is the president, the legislative branch, that is Congress, and the judicial branch, that is the courts. The founders designed it this way, specifically so that no one person or group could accumulate too much power. The courts are supposed to be independent. They are supposed to be able to say no to the president when the president breaks the law or exceeds his authority. Federal judges have lifetime appointments precisely so they do not have to worry about being popular or pleasing whoever is in power. They can just follow the law. But what happens when the president and his allies in Congress decide to punish judges who rule against them? What happens when they use impeachment not as a remedy for corruption, but as a weapon against judicial independence? You get exactly what we are seeing right now. You get a breakdown of the separation of powers. You get a situation where the executive branch is trying to dominate the judicial branch through intimidation and political retaliation. And if they succeed, if judges start backing down because they are afraid of being impeached, then one of the most important checks on presidential power just disappears. The normalization is the most dangerous part of all of this. I have been covering politics for a while now, and one thing I have learned is that norms matter almost as much as laws. There are a lot of things that are technically legal, but we do not do them because there is an understanding that doing them would be destructive. Impeaching judges over their rulings was one of those things. It was understood by both parties for most of American history that you do not do that. You can disagree with judges. You can criticize their rulings. You can appeal their decisions. But you do not try to remove them from office just because you lost a case. That norm is now being shattered. And once a norm is broken, once something that was unthinkable becomes thinkable, It is very hard to put that genie back in the bottle. The next time there is a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress, they will remember what Republicans did. They will remember that judges can be targeted for impeachment over unfavorable rulings, and they might do the same thing. And then the other side will escalate further, and before you know it, the independence of the judiciary is just gone. Every judge becomes a political actor who can be removed whenever the party in power decides they do not like how that judge is ruling. That is not a court system anymore. That is just another arena for partisan warfare. This affects you regardless of your political views. I do not care if you love Trump or hate Trump. I do not care if you are a Republican or a Democrat or somewhere in between. An independent judiciary protects everyone. Someday there will be a president you do not like. Someday there will be policies you think are unconstitutional or unjust. And when that day comes, you are going to want courts that can push back. You are going to want judges who can say no, that violates the Constitution. But you cannot do that if we destroy judicial independence now. If we establish that judges serve at the pleasure of whoever is in power, that protection goes away for everyone. The weapon you build today gets used against you tomorrow. That is how these things always work. The people cheering for judge impeachments right now are not thinking about what happens when the shoe is on the other foot. But it will be eventually. And when it is, they will wish they had defended judicial independence when they had the chance. We are at a fork in the road right now, and the path we choose matters enormously. This is one of those moments where the decisions being made will echo for decades. If the impeachment of Judge Boasberg goes forward, if it becomes acceptable to remove judges over their rulings, we are headed toward a very different kind of country. A country where the courts are just another political institution, where judges rule based on fear instead of law, where the president can effectively control the judiciary through threats and intimidation. That is not the America most of us grew up believing in. That is something else entirely. But it does not have to go that way. People are pushing back. Chief Justice Roberts spoke out. The Bar Association spoke out. Legal experts across the political spectrum are raising alarms. The question is whether enough people are paying attention, whether enough people understand what is at stake, whether enough people will demand that their representatives stop this before it goes any further. So here is what I want you to take away from all of this. What is happening right now is not normal. It is not just politics as usual. It is a fundamental attack on one of the pillars of American democracy. And the fact that it is happening openly with formal impeachment papers filed in Congress should tell you how serious this has gotten. The people doing this are not hiding what they are doing. They are proud of it. They think they are going to win. And maybe they will, unless enough people stand up and say, no, this is not acceptable. This is not how America works. Judges are not supposed to be punished for following the law. The courts are not supposed to be another arena for political combat. We are supposed to be better than this. The scope of this assault on judicial independence cannot be overstated. We are watching a systematic effort to transform the federal judiciary from an independent check on executive power into a rubber stamp for presidential authority. Every judge who reads about what is happening to Boasberg is going to think about what could happen to them. Every ruling they make from now on will be shadowed by the knowledge that if they rule against the administration, they could face the same treatment. That is the chilling effect I mentioned earlier, and it is exactly what the people behind these impeachment efforts want. They want judges to be afraid. They want judges to think twice before issuing rulings that might displease the president. They want to create a judiciary that is responsive to political pressure rather than bound by the rule of law. This is not some abstract constitutional theory. This is happening right now in real time. Formal articles of impeachment have been filed. Senate Republicans are trying to get the judge sidelined. The threats against judges are escalating to dangerous levels, and the people in charge are doing nothing to stop it. In fact, they are encouraging it. The question now is whether the institutions of American democracy are strong enough to resist this assault, whether the courts can stand firm in the face of political pressure, whether Congress will ultimately reject this dangerous precedent, whether the American people will demand that their leaders respect the independence of the judiciary, those questions will be answered in the coming months. And the answers will determine what kind of country we become. If the impeachment of Boasberg succeeds, if he is removed from the bench simply for ruling against the Trump administration, the message to every other federal judge will be unmistakable. Rule the way we want, or face the consequences. That message will change how judges behave. It will change how cases are decided. It will change the very nature of the American legal system. And once that change happens, it will be nearly impossible to reverse. Because once you establish that judges can be removed for their rulings, every future president will want that power. Every future Congress will want to use that weapon. And the independence of the judiciary will be gone forever. The people pushing these impeachments understand all of this. They are not naive. They know exactly what they are doing. They are deliberately dismantling the guardrails of American democracy because they believe it serves their political interests. They are willing to sacrifice the independence of the judiciary for short-term political gain. And they are counting on the public not paying close enough attention to stop them. That is why stories like this matter. That is why you need to understand what is happening. Because if the public is informed, if enough people are paying attention, if enough people speak out, there is still a chance to stop this before it goes too far. But if we all look away, if we all assume someone else will handle it, if we all accept this as just another example of politics as usual, then the independence of the judiciary will be lost. And once it is lost, it will not come back. So I am asking you to pay attention. Understand what is at stake. Share this information with people who might not know what is happening. Demand that your representatives in Congress stand up for judicial independence. Because if they do not, if they let this impeachment proceed without a fight, we will all pay the price. Not today, not tomorrow. But in the years to come, when the courts are no longer independent, when judges rule based on fear rather than law, when the president can effectively control the judiciary through threats and intimidation, we will look back on this moment and wonder why we did not do more to stop it. This is one of those moments where history will judge us based on what we did or did not do. The founders created an independent judiciary precisely to prevent the kind of tyranny that arises when one branch of government dominates the others. They understood that the courts must be free to rule based on the law, regardless of who is in power. They understood that justice cannot exist when judges are afraid of political retaliation, and they built a system designed to protect judicial independence. That system is now under direct assault, and the question is whether we will defend it. The impeachment articles against Judge Boasberg are not just about one judge. They are about the entire federal judiciary. They are about whether judges will be free to do their jobs or whether they will be forced to consider political consequences before issuing rulings. They are about whether the rule of law will survive in America, or whether we will become a country where the president can punish any judge who dares to rule against him. That is what is at stake. That is why this matters. And that is why you need to be paying attention. Because what happens next will determine the future of American justice for generations to come. And that future is being written right now in the halls of Congress, in the chambers of federal judges, and in the minds of every American who cares about whether justice will continue to be blind or whether it will become just another tool of political power.